So in this session, we have the esteemed chair, Mr. Sampath Kumar, who is CEO of Meghalaya Basin Development Authority, Government of Meghalaya. Very warm welcome to the esteemed chair and all the esteemed panelists of this session. We also have a special book which has been authored by the esteemed chair, and it is entitled The Road from Skincare to Healthcare. Yeah. So I'll request the esteemed chair to please kindly share his opening remarks and also tell us a little bit about this book.
Good morning to all of you. This is uh, today. In fact, we are going to talk about the greening industry, and the fueling growth via ESG partnerships for sustainability. That's the topic that given to us. I just like before I just want to set the context. Maybe all others, my esteemed panelists, would contribute. Uh, in the state of Meghalaya, we have been trying to, do things slightly differently, because what we did was how can we really leverage our own natural capital, what we have. So Meghalaya, being a hilly state with a large percentage of forest coverage, and also indigenous population. So basically our strength is both natural capital and also social capital. So leveraging both natural capital and social capital, we actually started creating institutions like the institution that I am currently heading as a Meghalaya Basin Development Authority. Two, we also have set up governance institutions like a climate council. Meghalaya has a state climate council. And Meghalaya also has, at a village level, we have the, village councils which are dedicated for natural resource management. So what that, while doing this one, we also actually started really actively engaging with a lot of partners. In fact, we are one state, we are working with almost every multilateral development banks, right from World Bank to the JICA to the ADB to the, name it anything, KFW. So all these multilateral development banks also have helped us to bring a lot of understanding of the entire ecosystem, so that we started actually building that ecosystem, that is required for the green growth, I would say green economy. So while we have done many things, but today I wanted to focus on few things which might be very interesting to you. So Meghalaya is one state where we already started getting carbon credits. So this is something that I wanted to share with you, carbon credits. So what we have been doing, like companies like Microsoft are actually purchasing the carbon credits because they are looking for places like Meghalaya, where you have the very indigenous population who are protecting the forests, and we also have authentic cadre that we developed to really measure the entire carbon removal, entire carbon credits in a very authentic way. So again, community driven. A lot of young people. We have trained about 14,000 of them in a small state like 14,000 community, young people, or we call them community facilitators. They have been trained on even this entire MRV, how do you measure carbon removals. So some of these things we trained them, and then we started working on, like, I just said, like working with, like there is a called Rabobank, which is actually facilitating between Microsoft and our farmers. 80% of the carbon credits are going back to the farmers. That's again a very interesting thing. This is a very going back to the farmers. So the first payments have been done. That's again a good news. So that's way we have been able to do. Then besides that, we're also working on this biochar idea, again to the another idea of, like, again when you talk about the carbon dioxide removal, CDR kind of a model. And then we're also talking about agro carbon finance, again a lot of organic farming, natural farming, how actually we can connect them with the carbon credits again. So this again, a lot of carbon sequestration is happening. Natural farming is a big thing. What all of us are aware about Andhra Pradesh model. Andhra Pradesh is doing a massive way, and Meghalaya is the second state to do it. In fact, Andhra farmers are actually for the last 3 years, they are staying in Meghalaya, helping our farmers to learn about natural farming. So a lot of this work that is happening in a very silent way, but in a very, very effective way. So this is something, and again, new innovations are coming up through this particular approach. Then we also have the Red Plus, we have sacred groves where our indigenous population, they don't actually cut the forest, they it's sacred, There is something that, if somebody takes even small piece of from the forest, it is seen as committing some sin. So that kind of a values that what we have, that's why I said that under ESG, both environment, social, as well as the governance. As I said, we have a climate council. Our chief minister, Mr. Konrad Sangma, is heavily invested on this particular idea, and we spend about 15% of the state budget on the climate-related work. So that's again one of the highest, so a lot of work that we are doing. Besides that, we also put a lot of focus on health. So we also see the interconnectedness between the environment and health, a lot of focus. We also spend about 9% of the state budget on healthcare. We're the outlier in the country in terms of the healthcare expenditure too. So based on all those experiments that what we have been doing, and by, by really addressing the governance issues, especially as I said, if you mobilize communities, build the institutions, give the, distributed leadership, we call it, if you really empower them, there is a tremendous, results that we can see. So we could see there is a reduction of maternal deaths by 50% over the last 5 years, 35% of infant mortality in the last, 5 years again. So a lot of these things that are happening because, when you invest on the governance, when you invest on building the social capital and human capital, you see a different kind of a result. So with this, we also have just like a pen down. I think this is what she's asked me to write tell about this book. This is the road from sick care to the health care. This is a book that we have written during the COVID period. So I'm also the health secretary of the state for the last over 5 years. So what we have done was basically a deep dive. So why actually many people are dying so early? How can we actually prevent them? What is that? What we need to do? So this is something that a very deep dive. This has both technological solutions as well as governance solutions. Both it covers both governance and technological solutions. How do you actually really improve the healthy lifespan of the people, so that actually, in fact, when we have wrote this one, in fact, we presented before the Berkeley Innovation Forum, which is at MBDA headquarters, in Santa Clara in US. So one of the investor like Steve Jurvetson actually has written a preface for this particular thing. So basically, he invested in that Elon Musk, that's the ventures. So what I wanted to say is that there is everyone wanted we wanted a healthy life, less morbidity, but how to do it? It requires a whole of a society, whole of a government approach to do that. That's what we are trying to do in a very interesting way in the state of Meghalaya. We are getting some initial results, and we long way to go, but definitely this is a kind of a manifesto. It's like a manifesto for healthcare. So this is something that we have given. Suppose if we really follow this in the sense the principles, we can actually create 80 billion life years. That's every year. So that's the kind of a value that actually we can create. That's what we try to present it in a more business and entrepreneurial angle, because the reason is that this I worked with a business school professor for this. So but it's a good thing for to get insight. So I just wanted to share, and I thank Dr. Arvind, who has been working with us in the state of Meghalaya, especially in the environment sector, for quite some time, and he has been instrumental in really bringing a lot of partnerships to the state. Thank you so much. I request my co-panelists to really What do you want to do? Okay. Picture. I request other panelists, like, I would like to request from Hungary, Mr. Levente, maybe you can take a, on this particular topic of today's discussion, like, greening industry. Thank you. Whatever.
Hello. Yeah. No, actually, it's not important, I think. So, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Levente Kardos. I'm commercial and economic counselor at the Embassy of Hungary. And it's a pleasure to contribute to this important discussion on how we can green industry, how we can greening industry while continuing to fuel economic growth. I would like to show the Hungarian perspective and the cooperation opportunities in India in that field. And I'm starting from the beginning with the bilateral relations. India and Hungary have traditionally close economic ties since India independence in 1947. India today remains an important key economic partner of Hungary, and we are open to further expanding economic ties. Just for comparison, so we can better place, Hungary is a country in Central Eastern Europe, in heart of Europe, with a population like Uttarakhand, a territory like Bihar, and an economy, so GDP, like West Bengal. On the other hand, Hungary is a member of the European Union since more than 20 years, which is one of the biggest economy on the world. So let me mention some statistics about the bilateral trade. Between 2015 and 2024, our bilateral trade more than doubled and reached 1.3 billion USD. Beyond that, 2025, until 2025, bilateral trade turnover increased by 88% and reached 2.42 billion USD, of which Indian imports amounted to 839 million and Hungarian exports to 1.58 billion. Hungarian exports increased threefold in this last year, plus 218% compared to 2024, mainly due to increased export of computers. However, I have to frankly say that most likely this increase is for this year only, and this is most likely a re-export activity. Today, Hungary is the gateway to Europe for many Indian investors. There are now 48 Indian companies, Indian creating employment opportunities for almost 9,000 people in Hungary. These include automotives, ICT, rubber and plastics, pharmaceutical, packaging industry, chemicals and metals. The major Indian presence in Hungary includes Tata Consulting Services, Apollo Tires, SMR Automotive, Sun Pharmaceuticals, Uflex, SRF, GBM Group. We have already signed strategic cooperation agreements with Tata Consultancy Services and SMR Mother Group, and we do hope that this list will continue to grow and we will welcome more Indian investors in Hungary. So as we can see, both countries depend on a strong manufacturing basis, international value chains and investor confidence. Today, ESG is reshaping all these three. Over the last decade, Hungary has become one of Europe's leading automotive production centers and a major battery manufacturing hub. However, the new phase of industrial policy is not just about production capacity, it is about decarbonization, circularity, and energy efficiency. Hungary was one of the first countries to adopt the ESG Act in line with EU regulations. We believe that economic growth and environmental protection can go hand in hand. Hungary has successfully demonstrated that it is possible to decouple GDP growth from carbon emissions. Our greenhouse gas emissions have been significantly reduced in recent years. Until 2024, Hungary has reduced its greenhouse gas emissions by more than 47% compared to 1990. Based on the results, Hungary raised ambition in its renewed national energy and climate plan by setting a new target of reducing its gross greenhouse gas emissions by at least 50% by 2030 compared to 1990. Hungary is among the first European states to introduce the Clean Industrial State Aid framework, which provides stronger support for the development of green technologies and net zero industries. Under the new rules, companies employing at least 50 employees are now eligible to apply for this type of investment support. As an EU member state, Hungary operates within the framework of the European Green Deal, the EU Taxonomy for Sustainable Activities, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, CBAM. These are not just regulatory tools, they are reshaping global supply chains. Companies operating in Hungary must now measure, report, and reduce their carbon footprint. This has accelerated innovation, energy efficiency, and sustainable investment. And we see clearly companies that adapt early gain a competitive advantage. ESG is a growth multiplier and not a constant. From the Hungarian and broader European experience, ESG delivers three tangible economic benefits: access to capital, so green bonds, sustainability linked loans, and the ESG investment funds are growing rapidly. Companies with credible ESG strategies enjoy lower financing costs and stronger investor trust. The second one, supply chain resilience. Transparent ESG standards reduce risk, regulatory, reputational, and operational risk as well. And the third one is export competitiveness. So global markets increasingly require traceability, carbon accounting, and responsible sourcing. In this sense, ESG is becoming a passport to global trade. For Indian companies exporting to the European Union, sustainability compliance is becoming a business necessity. Here partnership, of course, becomes crucial. The currently concluded EU-India Free Trade Agreement opens up new perspectives in this regard. The agreement has a dedicated trade and sustainable development chapter, provides for a platform for dialogue and cooperation on trade-related environmental and climate issues, and ensures effective implementation. Hungary views India not merely as a market, but as a long-term strategic partner in sustainable industrial development as well. Let me highlight some key areas for cooperation. E-mobility, battery industry. As I mentioned, Hungary is deeply integrated into the European automotive ecosystem and is now a key hub in battery and electric vehicle supply chains. India is rapidly expanding its EV market and local manufacturing capacity. There is strong potential for joint R&D in battery technology. Hungarian companies are already involved in the Indian electric bus program. Today, more than 2,500 buses produced by GBM based on Hungarian companies' control technology are running on Indian roads. Water and environment technologies. Hungary has internationally recognized expertise in communal and industrial wastewater treatment and purification, drinking water purification, water recycling technologies, as well as in the training of water experts. We welcome that the Hungarian Purasset Ltd. has successfully applied its technology with its Indian partner in the Eureka Innovate program in Uttar Pradesh, in Moradabad, in this EU program, and tested it in 2 locations in Moradabad to supply communities living in rural areas with healthy, arsenic-free drinking water. Then let me mention sustainable agriculture and food processing. Climate change and food security are interconnected challenges. Hungary offers precision agriculture technologies, seed innovation, sustainable irrigation systems, advanced food safety standards aligned with EU norms. There is potential for technology transfer, joint ventures, and research cooperation. In agri-technology, a Hungarian company, Proofminder, analyzes high-resolution images for agriculture businesses using artificial intelligence as a farming platform service, and it processed data last year already on 10,000 acres. Let me mention pharmaceutical and life sciences. Hungary has a long tradition in pharmaceutical manufacturing and research. Sustainable production standards in pharma are increasingly important, particularly regarding energy use and waste management. India, as a global pharmaceutical leader, is a natural partner for innovation in green pharma production. The biggest Hungarian investor in India is Richter Gedeon, which is established 2004, a joint venture with its Indian partner Themis Medicare in Vapi, Gujarat. The joint venture has set up a manufacturing plant in Vapi, Gujarat. Then let me mention regulatory convergence as a competitive advantage. One of the most important dimensions of ESG cooperation is the regulatory alignment. European sustainability regulations are becoming global reference points. Indian exporters increasingly need carbon transparency, ESG reporting systems, sustainable sourcing verification. Hungary, operating fully within the EU regulation framework, can support Indian companies in understanding and adapting to these requirements. This creates faster EU market entry, reduce compliance risk, enhanced investor confidence. In this way, Hungary can serve as both a production partner and a regulatory gateway to Europe. An example of cooperation in this field, Danksper EHS and S Software Ltd, Hungarian-based ESG and the EHS digital solution provider, working with Kola MS Risk Services Limited, India-based risk engineering and sustainability consulting company. The collaboration focuses on helping companies accelerate ESG adaptation and sustainability compliance using digital tools and consulting expertise. Few of the Indian clients who uses their digital tool and solutions are Iglo, Innovacint, Coromandel International. And let me summarize in some points my message. So greening industries is not an obstacle to growth. It is the next phase of industrial competitiveness. ESG partnership between Hungary and India can enhance trade, investment, and innovation on both sides. In a rapidly changing geopolitical and economic environment, trusted partnerships matter more than ever. Hungary stands ready to deepen cooperation with India in sustainable manufacturing, clean technologies, regulatory alignment. If we combine European regulatory experience, Hungarian technology, industrial integration, Indian scale and innovation capacity, we can build value chains that are not only profitable, but sustainable and globally competitive. Thank you for your attention.
So Now I request Mr. Pankaj Sharma.
Good afternoon, everyone. As I was climbing the stairs, I was a little depressed because some of the comments that were being made in the last session about what's not good about India, I'd definitely like to differ. And Mr. Mehta is not here. I would have loved to say it in front of him also. Things are not that bad. You know, when you say that even if we can imbibe only 5% of the efficiency that Japanese bring in, that's not true. I think we are doing much more than they can bring in. The government is actually doing very well, both on every state and the central level. So there was a discussion about, Singapore being the financial capital, but when someone looks at it, okay, where is Singapore investing? Singapore invested $15 billion last year. You know, the largest single FDI investments to India have come from Singapore. And the last 5 years has been around $160 billion. So, India is where it should be. I think it's progressing well. And, with a lot of efficiencies. And when I talk to industry captains and the government and everyone, I think there is so much of commitment and, measurable outcomes that there are that I feel proud of. Coming to the topic, which is greening industry fueling growth via ESG partnerships for sustainability. For decades, the relationship between industry and sustainability was framed as a trade-off, growth versus environment, productivity versus responsibility. But that framing, I think, is becoming very rapidly outdated. Today, the most competitive industries in the world are increasingly discovering something very important. Sustainability is not a constraint on growth. It is becoming a new architecture of growth. And that's exactly my co-panelist, Mr. Levente, also just mentioned a little while ago. Now, across sectors, we are seeing a profound shift, and this shift is becoming so apparent with all the geopolitical things happening that, number one, energy systems are transforming. The supply chains are not only shifting, but they're becoming much more transparent. Industrial ecosystems are moving towards circularity. But what is particularly interesting is that this transformation is not being driven by regulation alone. It is being driven by new forms of collaboration. So no single actor, nor government, nor companies, nor investors, nor regulators can transform these systems alone. We all have to come together. What is emerging instead are ESG partnerships that bring together industry, finance, technology, and policy. And these partnerships are reshaping how industries operate. If we examine some of the most successful transitions globally, they share three major characteristics. The first one is a resource efficiency, which is becoming a competitive edge now. Companies that reduce energy intensity, material waste, and water consumption often discover that sustainability also improves margin. The second is innovation accelerates when sustainability challenges are treated as engineering problems rather than compliance obligations. And this, I think, is very important. Many of the most exciting technological breakthroughs, from green hydrogen to circular manufacturing systems, emerged precisely because industries were forced to rethink how resources are being used and will be used in the future. Third is industrial ecosystems and how they are evolving. The suppliers, manufacturers, logistics providers, recyclers, they are all becoming part of this integrated sustainability networks. The factory of the future is, I think, not just a place of production, it is a node in the circular ecosystem. But for this transformation to succeed, we must address a central question. How do we move from ESG as a compliance to ESG as a strategy? Because if ESG remains a reporting exercise, it will remain marginal to industrial decision making. But when ESG becomes embedded in capital allocation, supply chain design, and innovation strategy, it begins to reshape the entire industrial competitiveness itself. Another shift we are beginning to see is what I would call the emergence of collaborative industrial decarbonization. Large infrastructure systems such as railways, logistic networks, energy companies, manufacturing clusters, they cannot decarbonize in isolation. They require cross-sector partnerships. Examples could be railways transitioning towards electrified and renewable power transport. The second could be industrial clusters sharing renewable energy infrastructure. And then third is manufacturers integrating circular supply chains. These are just examples. There are thousands of other examples that we all know about and we can talk about. So these are not isolated sustainability projects. They are system-led transformations. And this brings us perhaps to the most important question for this session. If sustainability is becoming a driver of industrial competitiveness, then how do we build the partnerships, technologies, and governance frameworks that enables industries, governments, and other entities to thrive in this new environment? Our distinguished panelists today bring perspectives from, and throughout the day we have seen, from public infrastructure, renewable energy, aviation energy services, academic research, and industrial policy. Now, together, they all represent the very ecosystem that must collaborate to make industrial sustainability successful. Now, in the same segue, I would also say India Water Foundation, sits in the middle of the entire network of government, regulators, influencers, civil societies, and societies at large. With Hungary, you took an example of your collaboration with Tata Consulting Services and others. I would request that why don't we expand our potential collaboration with India Water Foundation? We should look towards avenues of how, because this entire session is about collaboration, how can we move towards deeper? Meghalaya, Mr. Sampath, we have heard such great work that is being done in Meghalaya, and especially by you, and we keep hearing all the positive impact that's bringing not only to the state, but becoming like a role model for other states as well. I think the question would be, how do we deepen the relationship and enhance the entire value that we together can bring to this relationship, which ensures significantly greater positive impact? So I look forward to hearing from the chair as well and other panelists, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pankaj. I think we have another Professor Rabi Mohtar, is a governor of World Water Council, and I think a director Water Security, Texas Water Resources Institute from Texas A&M University. I think he's joining online. May I request Professor Rabi Mohtar?
To share this very important benchmark in the transversality of the resource nexus. I'll talk about the nexus approach to global resource security. We all know that the resource nexus is threatened by interlinkages, interdependencies between water, energy, food, and health. It's also challenged by the gaps that we see moving down in the coming years for many reasons. Population expansion is one of them, but also the threats to catastrophes from climate change and other geopolitical risks. As such, these interconnections and these gaps, and these are that I outline here, with the inequality and the variability in distribution and the allocation of these resources, the way we have been doing that, along with non-sustainable consumption and the extreme that we see, and the non-stationarity, also compounded by a non-sustainable business model that we see. All of this threatens the mere existence of the resource nexus. However, this also creates a new opportunity to look into a more resilient communities through developing new value-based business model. And the nexus is one of those approaches that emerge as a promising tool to help us navigate this complexity of this challenging environment in the resource nexus. So you see here at the center of this image, you see the water, energy, food, and I'd like to highlight at the center of this is the hotspot, which is the vulnerable area or the vulnerable resource that we're looking at. And of course, the interlinkages between these resources that I mentioned earlier, and of course the trade-offs. We are entering an era of a trade-off in which we cannot do everything we need to do, so we have to select. This resource nexus comes in building on disciplinary knowledge of the sustainable diets, food production, the energy efficiency, integrated water resources management within a very complex government, society, business interface that comes in with rising economies, climate change, demographic changes, resilient environment, technology, political pressure, and trade. So it's a very complex system that the nexus, the water, energy, food nexus, is trying to address. But I'll be incomplete if I only define the nexus as the platform for quantifying these interlinkages. The nexus is intended to actually change action, change behavior, change technologies, change our policies that will help us migrate from a conflict into a more cooperation environment where rather than looking at this competition between these resources, we look into the synergies that exist with that. Of course, within the political economy and within the supply chain dialogue. In 2023, through the World Economic Forum, we had a task force that looks into the transversality, and I'm happy to mention here that the India Water Foundation was a partner in this process, and we developed a vision for making integrated water resources management into a system approach. So the top part of the chart, the busy chart, you see the blue. The blue boxes represent what we call the integrated water resources management that was originally developed, and I quote here the Global Water Partnership. Smith and Clausen in 2015 added two additional pillars in the dynamic management of change and bridging strategy and problem solving. The task force report really expanded this vision to look into expanding the stakeholders and identifying solutions at the system level that may emerge from the interaction with these stakeholders, engage them, and identifying synergistic solutions. So these are the four additional pillars that we looked at, but it's not the complete story. If you look carefully, we have a whole list of stakeholders, and I'll name a few: equity, health, energy, education, peace, industry, nature, food, people. Those are the stakeholders that include all of the interacting sectors with our water system. In addition, we are not looking at water for these sectors. It's water and includes a two-way dialogue and communication. So we presented this in 2023, and the questions in the room saying, okay, this is a nice vision on paper, what do you do with it? So the next few slides in my presentation will actually focus on case studies that we conducted that pretty much substantiate that vision with case studies. This is Matagorda County near Houston in Texas, and you will see Houston as a big metropolitan area surrounded by forest and surrounded by wooded areas and also by agriculture. And near Houston and the coastal area, there is a Matagorda County, which has one of the largest nuclear power plant that takes a lot of water from that area away from agriculture and for cooling purposes. So we did the analytics, and what emerged out of the analytics is infrastructural support that will actually ensure uninterrupted agriculture, uninterrupted energy, and uninterrupted businesses around the area, and also save environmental degradation in the area, but also provide water for the cooling. And these infrastructure changes, including on-farm irrigation system, including building new reservoir, including conveyance system, and these are levers that we were able to assess using the analytical approach that we developed. Another example is looking at this bridging the water gap in Texas, And you will see here a lot of competition for water use among many sectors, including the energy sector, the agriculture, and the municipalities. And also the analytics guide us into interventions that will bridge that water gap without looking into any of the compromising any of the sectors that exist. The other last example that we're actually currently working on is in Sao Paulo. One of the Sao Paulo area, the watershed is a São Marcos watershed, which has a growing area. It's traditionally agriculture, and the energy industry is trying to build a hydroelectric dam that will take away some of the water allocated for agriculture. So we are actually working. We finished the analytics, and the intention is in the coming weeks to visit back with the community to share with them the outcome, so that there will be a convergence on some of these solutions. The last example I'd like to share with you is an ongoing activity that we are engaged with at the moment, trying to integrate health into the resource nexus. Health is a critical component in the nexus, and we are trying to look into quantifying the health implication of the quantity and quality of the water, energy, and food. Digging deep into this, it's not only the availability of water, energy, food, but it's also the quality of the water, energy, food that actually has some health implication. I would leave you with some concluding remarks, including the bridging the water gap requires a multi-stakeholder approach, accounting for spatial temporal distribution of resources, and also the interconnectedness between these sectors. The Nexus approach provides a platform to choose the most appropriate interventions without having any interruptions to the operations as we see it. Solutions are holistic, yet localized. The biggest challenge that we will be facing in the coming years is who pays for it. How do we govern this nexus? And this is something that many of us are working on. Last but not least, health is a critical component of the nexus. Integrating health reframes the entire system, moving beyond resource management to focus on the ultimate goal of human well-being. Thank you very much for your attention, and again, sorry for not being with you, and I'll be happy to maybe interact at a later time, and my email is always available, open for questions and interactions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Rabi, for a wonderful presentation with a lot of modelings. So I think I just wanted to say a few remarks, and maybe other panelists also can share. So one, I think by listening to the various all the panelists and also Professor Ravi, one of the things that is coming up is that there is a really a need for systems thinking, like where everything is connected. I think we definitely should not see in a very silo approach. This is something that is happening many times when it comes to environment. In fact, I just want to give a small thing, like in one state we have about 11 different departments and agencies working for the same subject called water and environment. So it's such a challenging thing for for people to really come together and work. So one important thing is that how do you bring a kind of a collaborative framework which actually brings more of a leadership approach. Currently, we use a lot of management approaches. How can we use more leadership approaches? How can we actually bring everyone together and see the purpose, not the programs, So I think that a lot of mobilization and orchestration is required now. I think that's the need of the hour, because then you have people who are closer to the problem can solve the problems. For example, I just give one small example. We have this, the village traditional headman who heads the village. So what we did was we were visiting one village where we found one headman, what he did, he purchased the land of private individuals because that land falls under catchment area of that particular river stream. Because if you don't conserve that area, the village would not get water. So they were not actually looking for any government intervention. They did by themselves. And then we just like brought that positive deviance case to a gathering of all other chiefs of the traditional councils. It's in a place called Mausinram. Mausinram is the world's wettest place, in the sense like you get huge rainfall there. And but still during the lean season they don't have water. So such a paradox, so what we did, we called all other headmen and asked them to see like how this headman did this. And another 20 villages, they started doing the same thing. So it's all, how do you mobilize? How do you actually set an agenda for, this particular work? I think a lot of, the stewardship and leadership is required in this particular work, what we have been actually talking about it. So this is something that I want to share. But I give it to Dr. Arvind. You want to say something? Yeah, some words. Thank you, Dr. Arvind.
So, thank you very much, Mr. Sampath Kumar ji, and other speaker who actually highlight different aspect of this topic. And Dr. Rabi Mohtar, he was my colleague in World Water Council, and we actually initiated this mission, and we initiated the world transversality over there. So 10 years before, and after that, transversality means actually water's role with all the SDGs, right from end poverty to nobody left behind. So my experience since 20 years while working in different areas, Meghalaya and other, actually, we come to the conclusion that there is a need of a sector-actor synergy. So a lot of sectors, a lot of actors. So how can we actually have some commonalities to work in different areas? Yesterday also, our honorable speaker talk about that we should work together in most of the actually agendas together, like health, environment, water, energy, all should be actually covered in one. Means we have to break the silos, more connections, more interconnectedness to be there. And in the before session, Mr. MP Singh actually emphasize on the finance actually. So there is need of a finance, technology, innovation, traditional wisdom, top-down and bottom-up approach for all. Top-down means for any country or a state, maybe what is required means bylaws, by rules, bylaws, you should have conventions, anything, and how can we bind the actually state or government, because water is a state subject, and most of are in state from the state. So first we top-down means you have the perfect rules, law, and how can we actually initiate all the good things in a bottom-up, means with the stakeholder. So Meghalaya is a very good example for that, and I am witness since 20 years. Actually, they have achieved a lot of good things, in fact, and this can be a replicate to other states as well. The important thing is cross-learning. The idea of India Water Foundation means we are a small think tank working with almost 100 agencies. We have 17 accreditation Asia Pacific. Means we have a strength to collaborate the people only. So connections, collaborations, more institutions should be there, so that the efforts should be actually shown in one platform. So transversality is a kind of a platform where you can actually have results in a common, where every stakeholder think that this is my platform, because it's connected to sector, it's connected to actors, it's also connect to the every aspect of the process. So here I'm stop here. Phone to other. Yeah, thank you.
The final word to sir chair ka hona chahiye. But again, just keeping in line with the topic, I would say that, and Arvindji said it very beautifully, that we always talk about how do we come together, right? And we'll meet in this conference, we'll exchange cards, and then everything is lost after that. So the idea is that if we are very clear in our minds of what we have set out to achieve, and we know, okay, I know these 10 people that I can connect with, that's where I think we should take that initiative and go ahead and form those very close collaboration with those individuals or institutions, and figure out what's the best in that value chain, and then start implementing. Sampath gave a beautiful example of, and it's such a down to the, I would say, to the soil example, where a headman of a very small village thought of something, and the government just acted as a catalyst, right, and bringing others together, and it was replicated across. So similarly, if there are learnings from what you are doing and that can be shared with others, I think that should also be done, so that the other institution, individuals can take benefit of that and work with you and take it to a higher level. That's all I would say. Thank you once again.
Yeah. Yes. So that's a big challenge. Big challenge to find a responsible person, to find, as you mentioned, the different authorities in different fields. And of course, my situation is also special because I'm a guest here, yeah. And to find a way is a big challenge. Of course, we have also the platforms. We have so the EU delegation, the colleagues. We can change minds on projects, on topics, on yes, directions where to go. But of course, I think platforms like this and very important, and the meetings, the communication, the started joint projects, yeah, to do something. That's why I mentioned companies. What we have some projects or project ideas, because these are the first steps. That's of course that's my job to sell these technologies. But the most important to talk about, to start to communicate, and make together the first steps. So thank you for the invitation, and hopefully there will be a second step as well. Yeah? Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you for that session, and thank you all for your inputs. To do the honors of presenting mementos to the esteemed chair and the esteemed speakers, may I request Dr. Arvind Kumar to please do us the honors, since you are on stage with us. We start by thanking Mr. Pankaj Sharma. Thank you for being a part of this discussion. We thank Mr. Levente Kardos. He's Economic and Commercial Counsellor, Embassy of Hungary, New Delhi. And our special thanks to Mr. Sampath Kumar, the esteemed chair, CEO, Meghalaya Basin Development Authority, Government of Meghalaya. I request you all to please join us front and center for a group photo.